A double bind. It's a double bind because you're their parent and you're their child. And that creates fucking chaos. So let's examine the trauma bond in terms of the shared fantasy and why that's having such a big impact on us. Well, as I'd mentioned before, the shared fantasy is their sort of internal working structure. So that means that anybody that comes into their sort of relational realms, and that can be any relational realms, by the way, that can be work colleague, best friend, whatever, flying monkeys, whatever it may be around you, anybody that comes into that pathological narcissistic space, they're in their own shared fantasy with the narcissist, i.e., they see them in their own grandeur and sort of continue to keep that facade going internally within them. They're not aware it's happening, by the way, but it's happening internally within the narcissist. So they merge with anybody internally. They take a what's called a snapshot. So it's like a photograph, and they merge with that. So you, as the new partner, they took a snapshot of you whenever they first met you, and they idealized that snapshot, right? Whenever it merged with them, they had already set the exact boundaries of what you were going to do and what they expected of you, and that was for total adoration. Let them away with all their behaviours. They can be as narcissistic as they need to be. They can be as sadistic and pathological as they ever are, and you ought to let them away with it because they're trying to recreate this separation, individuation away from this internal bad mother that they have, which they'll never separate from because it's part of them. So this merging is a dual mothership because the false self, this creation, this false ideation of who they are, which is covering up the dark void of them, of nothingness, is one of a self-reliant, narcissistically libido-driven mother, and this false self is covering up all the bad objects inside of them that they just can't face, that are hidden deep down in this dark void. So it is a competitive mothering role that you're now being sucked into, and because you are a mother, you are by de facto their parent, and they are they're your child, and this goes both ways. So we now have a crossover of both being each other's mother and children. And this creates a totally different type of attachment that you would normally get in a normal romantic relationship. You wouldn't normally get this mothering, nurturing, um, solely mothering and nurturing role because it's not a loving role. It's an all forgiving role. So whenever the relationship ends, it's like losing a child. So the grief implications behind it are absolutely huge. Um, and you would have felt this in the relationship. You would have felt the child in them that you needed to nurture and take care of. It was always incredibly apparent, but it was apparent in a very naive kind of way, because they probably played it down slightly, or it only appeared every so often. But whenever it appeared, it was very, very fucking obvious. So there is that loss, there is that grieving element, and you're also grieving yourself. You're grieving the idealized image that you had of yourself in the relationship because the co idealization in the beginning increases our own grandiosity, which is what it's meant to do. It's narcissistic elation. It's you being seen. And if you have never experienced that in your life, which I certainly don't think I really had, and if I had, I was devalued very quickly as a child. And I think that's, anybody who finds themselves in these relationships on a repetitive basis has been through the same kind of childhood family dynamics where, um, if somebody idealizes us or somebody shows any great amount of interest in us, then emotionally we can get very, very easily attached. And it's these red flags, these little reminders of our own attachment issues and our own object relations issues that we really need to go and look at. And this is the original trauma bond. But, you know, because we have this grieving sense of loss, it's very, very deep, and it is one of loss of a child. It is one of loss of ourselves and the shared fantasy itself. It has that bond. So it's incredibly complex. Trauma bonds are way more complex than just intermittent reinforcement. I'll do another video on it now about what intermittent reinforcement is, because it's not what you think it is at all. At all. Like, I mean, even remotely. So there's so much to learn, but trauma bonding in particular, causes a lot of issues at the end. But it's not the be all and end all whenever it comes to understanding why you are grieving this relationship so hard, because it's incredibly complex. Peace out. Loads of love.